In Australia, there is a town the government erased from the map, not because it died, but because the air itself can kill you. On an island in the Mediterranean, soldiers have spent 50 years guarding a beach resort no one is allowed to enter. Thousands of hotel rooms frozen since 1974. And at number 3, you will see a place where the dead are washed, dressed in new clothes, and offered cigarettes, years after their funerals. 15 abandoned places, 15 true stories. Stay with me, because by the end of this video you will know why each one was left behind, and why one of them was never abandoned at all. Every one of these places was once full of life. Kitchens with plates on the table, schools with chalk still on the board. Then, sometimes in a single afternoon, the people were gone. What they left behind is a record of how fast everything we build can stop and stay until the end, because number 1 lies under 36,000 tons of steel sealed over the most dangerous room on Earth. We begin in the American West. Number 15, Bodie, California. East of the Sierra Nevada stands a gold rush town where the school desks still hold their books and the shop shelves are still stocked. In the late 1870s, Bodie was one of the wildest boomtowns in the West. Thousands of miners, dozens of saloons so violent that the bad man from Bodie became a saying. Then the gold thinned, and by the 1940s the town stood silent. In 1962, California made it a state park with one strange rule: arrested decay. Rangers do not restore Bodie, and they do not let it collapse. A sagging roof is propped exactly where it sags. Visitors who pocket souvenirs keep mailing them back with apology letters blaming a curse. So the legend goes. Bodie is not preserved in its glory days. It is preserved in the act of dying, and the dying itself is what they maintain. Gold ran out and emptied this town. The next village was emptied by a signature. Number 14, Kayaköy. On a hillside above the Turkish coast stand hundreds of roofless stone houses climbing the slope like an amphitheater, a Greek town once called Villisca. No battle was fought here. No disaster struck. In 1923, after the war between Greece and Turkey, the two governments signed an agreement that traded entire populations. More than 1 million people moved by treaty. The Christians of Villisca were shipped to Greece. Muslim families arriving from Greece were offered the empty houses, and most refused to live in a town of ghosts. So it never filled again, and an earthquake in 1957 finished what the silence had started. And the world barely remembers it happened. No fire, no flood, no plague ever touched Kayaköy. It was emptied by ink. The next ruin was never left by its people. Its people were marched out of it. Number 13, Bran Castle, Romania. You know it as Dracula's castle, the fortress on a Transylvanian cliff. The uncomfortable truth, Bram Stoker never set foot in Romania, and the real Vlad the Impaler has only the thinnest documented link to Bran. The vampire is marketing. The castle's real dark chapter came later. After the Second World War, Romania's communist government expelled the royal family almost overnight and seized everything. Queen Marie, who had loved Bran most, was already gone. Her embalmed heart, sealed in a silver casket, spent decades wandering from resting place to resting place. The castle sank into neglect before restorers saved it, and in 2006 it was handed back to Marie's descendant, a man who had fled it as a boy. Today, a monster that never existed keeps the real castle alive. Millions come for the fiction and end up paying for the facts. The next town is being buried alive, one room at a time. Number 12, Kolmanskop, Namibia. In 1908, in the Namib Desert, a railway worker named Zacharias Lewala cleared sand from the tracks and picked up a glittering stone, a diamond. The ground was scattered with them. Within years, a German colonial town rose from the dunes, a ballroom, a hospital, an ice factory, and the first X-ray machine in the southern hemisphere. That machine is the tell. It was bought not to find broken bones, but to scan the miners, to catch diamonds hidden in stomachs. When richer fields were found to the south, the town emptied. By 1956, the last families were gone. Today, dunes stand waist-high in the bedrooms, pouring through doorways like slow water. Kolmanskop was never built for people. It was built for stones, and when the stones moved on, so did everything that pretended to be a town. From a town built on diamonds to a palace built on millions, emptied in part by a single night in the North Atlantic. Number 11, Lynnewood Hall. In Elkins Park, Pennsylvania, stands a limestone palace of 110 rooms, 55 bedrooms, a ballroom for 1,000 guests, built for Peter Widener, one of the richest men in America. Its halls held Rembrandts, Vermeers, a Raphael. In April 1912, Widener's son George and grandson Harry boarded a ship home from Europe. The ship was the Titanic. Neither came back, and the old man died in the hall 3 years later. In 1942, the family gave the art away. More than 2,000 works, a founding collection of the National Gallery of Art. The palace that held them was sold off, stripped, and left to rot. Explorers call it the last American Versailles. Only in 2023 did a foundation buy it back from ruin. America saved the collection and threw away the box it came in. The next place was never built to hold treasure, it was built to hold silence. Number 10, Eastern State Penitentiary. In Philadelphia stands a Gothic fortress built in 1829 around one radical idea, that total silence could heal a criminal's soul. This is where the word penitentiary earned its meaning, a place for penitence. Each man lived alone, exercised alone in a walled yard, and was hooded whenever he was moved, so that for years he might never see another face. Charles Dickens visited in 1842 and wrote that this slow tampering with the brain was worse than any torture of the body. The silence did not heal minds. It broke them, and the system was abandoned. Al Capone did his time here in 1929, in a cell with rugs and a radio. The prison closed in 1971, and for 2 decades, trees grew inside the cell blocks. Today, it stands as a stabilized ruin. It was built on the belief that silence heals. The silence was the sentence. The next ruin healed thousands, including one patient history would never forgive. Number 9, Beelitz-Heilstätten, Germany. In the pine forests south of Berlin stands a hospital city of some 60 buildings built from 1898 to give Berlin's poorest workers light, air, and rest against tuberculosis. Then the First World War filled it with more than 12,000 wounded soldiers. One of them in the autumn of 1916 was a young private hit at the Battle of the Somme. His name was Adolf Hitler. The hospital patched him up and sent him back. In 1945, the Red Army seized the complex and kept it for half a century, the largest Soviet military hospital outside the Soviet Union, until the last soldiers left in 1994 and the doors simply closed. Paint peels in the surgical theaters. A treetop walkway carries tourists above the roofs. The building did its job, decade after decade. History decided what walked back out. The next city had no slow decline, no decades of fading. It had a day and a half. Number 8, Pripyat. Founded in 1970, Pripyat was a model Soviet city. Average age 26, nearly 50,000 residents, and a brand new amusement park set to open on the 1st of May, 1986. On the night of April 26th, 3 kilometers south of the city, something tore itself apart. Pripyat could see the glow, and for a day and a half, life continued. Children on the playgrounds, weddings, while the air filled with what no one could see. Then on the afternoon of April 27th, loudspeakers announced a temporary evacuation. 3 days, they said, take your documents and a little food. Around 1,200 buses emptied the city in a few hours. The 3 days have lasted 40 years. Toys still wait on apartment floors and the Ferris wheel never had its opening day. Pripyat is not a city that died. It is a city that was told to wait outside and never called back in. And the thing that emptied it is still there behind a wall of steel waiting at the end of this list. If you are still here, you have seen the pattern. Gold, war, poison, sand. Every place on this list was left for a reason, and the reasons keep getting darker. You are about to see the place at number 3, the one I told you about at the start, where the dead are dressed in new clothes and offered cigarettes. The place where no one is ever truly abandoned. And we end at number 1, at a sealed door that will still be dangerous when every other ruin in this video has crumbled into dust. But first, a capital city, buried alive. Number 7, Plymouth, Montserrat. In the Caribbean, on a small British island, there is a capital city buried to its rooftops. Plymouth held the port, the government, the shops, 4,000 people under a green mountain that had been quiet for centuries. In July 1995, the Soufriere Hills volcano woke up. The town was evacuated as ash began to fall, and in June 1997, a burning avalanche of gas and rock swept down the slopes, killing 19 people. That August, further flows buried most of Plymouth. Today, a clock tower and church steeples poke out of ash meters deep. The whole south of the island is an exclusion zone, and 2/3 of the islanders never returned. And here is the strange part. Plymouth is still on paper the capital of Montserrat. On every official map, a capital where no one is allowed to live. A whole capital erased in an afternoon. The next story is smaller. 1 house, 1 night, and it has never been solved. Number 6, Villisca, Iowa. In June 1912, in a small white frame house in a small American town, 8 people were killed in their sleep, a family and 2 visiting children. There were suspects and there were trials. There was never a conviction. The crime was never solved and the town never outgrew it. More than a century later, the house has been restored to exactly its 1912 condition. Oil lamps, no electricity, period furniture, and people pay to spend the night. That is the unsettling twist. This house is not abandoned at all. It is deliberately kept the way it was on the worst night it ever saw because an unanswered question does not let go. The town could move on from the family, it could never move on from the question. 32 years later, to the exact same day in June, time stopped for an entire village. Number 5, Oradour-sur-Glane, France. 4 days after the D-Day landings on June 10, 1944, soldiers of an SS division surrounded a quiet village near Limoges. By nightfall, 642 men, women, and children, almost everyone who lived there, had been killed, and the village had been set on fire. When the war ended, General de Gaulle made a decision no one had made before. The ruins would not be cleared. They would be preserved exactly as they were, forever, as evidence. A new Oradour was built beside the old one. In the dead village, rusted 1940s cars still stand in the streets, sewing machines sit in burned-out kitchens, and the sign at the entrance carries one word: remember. Every other ruin in this video was abandoned. Oradour was ordered never to heal, because a wound that heals can be denied. France did not preserve a village. It preserved proof. Oradour was kept so the world would remember. The next town was erased so people would stop coming. And they come anyway. Number 4, Wittenoom, Australia. In the red outback of Western Australia, there was a town built on blue asbestos, the deadliest form of it. Until the mine closed in 1966, its dust hung over everything. Tailings were spread on playgrounds, on roads, even on the racecourse. Around 20,000 people lived or worked there. More than 2,000 of them have died of asbestos-related disease. You read that correctly. The fibers are microscopic needles. Breathed in once, they can sit in the lungs for decades before turning deadly. That is why Wittenoom can never be cleaned, only avoided. 3 million tons of tailings still lie there. So the government did something almost unheard of. It executed the town, cut the power, erased its name from maps and road signs, removed the last resident in 2022 and bulldozed the buildings. And still, tourists sneak in for photographs. They erased the name because the map was the last thing still inviting people in. Everywhere so far, the living left something behind. In the next place, nothing is ever left behind, not even the dead. Number 3. The one I promised you, Tana, Toraja. In the green highlands of Sulawesi, Indonesia, there is a land where the houses have roofs curved like ships, and where the cliffs are honeycombed with graves. Families chisel tombs into solid rock by hand. A single chamber can take months to carve. On ledges in the cliff faces stand rows of wooden figures, tau, carved likenesses of the dead, dressed in real clothes, gazing out over the valleys. And that is the least of it. When someone dies in Toraja, they are not called dead. They are tumakula, the sick one. The body stays in the family home, sometimes for months, sometimes for years, while the family saves for a funeral that can cost more than a house. The sick one is not hidden away. They are visited, spoken to, brought food and drink, even cigarettes. Still part of the family, still home. Only after the great funeral, with its days of ceremony and its buffalo sacrifices, does the soul begin its journey to Puya, the land of the dead. Only then is the person called dead. And even that is not goodbye. Every few years, in a ritual called Manin, families open the graves again. They lift out their ancestors, clean them, dress them in new clothes, and pose for photographs, 3 generations and the dead together. To outsiders, it can look like a horror film. To the Toraja, it is the opposite. The deepest form of care they know. Death here is not an event. It is a slow journey, and you do not abandon someone in the middle of a journey. That is why this place belongs on this list, as its exact opposite. 14 of these 15 stories are about people leaving. This is the one place where leaving does not exist. We keep our dead out of sight and call it peace. The Toraja keep theirs close and call it love. And after everything you have seen in this video, you have to ask which of us is the strange one. In Toraja, nothing is ever locked away. The next place is nothing but locks, a paradise sealed shut with soldiers guarding the emptiness. Number 2. Varosha, Cyprus. In the early 1970s, this district of Famagusta was the glamour resort of the Mediterranean, miles of golden sand, more than 12,000 hotel rooms, film stars on the beach. In August 1974, war split Cyprus in two. Varosha's entire population fled in hours, expecting to be back within days, and the Turkish army rolled fences around the whole district. Then came the strangest part. Nothing. Varosha was not rebuilt and not resettled, it was guarded. Soldiers patrolled fences around empty hotels. Behind one showroom window, brand new 1974 cars sat gathering dust. A United Nations resolution declared that only the original inhabitants may ever resettle it, so no one has. In 2020, a strip of beach was opened to visitors. Most of the town remained sealed. Think about what that means. An entire resort held like evidence for half a century. Varosha was never simply left. It is being kept, a city under arrest, guilty of nothing but its address. But none of these prepare you for what comes last. Number 1. Chernobyl. On April 26, 1986, at 23 minutes past 1 in the morning, technicians at reactor number 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant were running a safety test. It failed in the worst way a reactor can fail. A power surge tore the core apart, blew the roof off the building, and set the graphite on fire. An open wound in the earth, breathing radioactive smoke into the sky. The cloud drifted across Europe. Around the plant, an exclusion zone was drawn, 30 kilometers in every direction, some 2,500 square kilometers. And inside it, town after town was emptied. You have already seen the most famous of them at number 8. Hundreds of thousands of workers, the liquidators, cycled through the zone to contain the disaster. Beneath the reactor, the melted core cooled into black, glassy lava. Fuel, sand, and steel fused together. The most infamous formation has a name, the Elephant's Foot. In the first months, standing beside it for a few minutes meant death. The first cover, the sarcophagus, was thrown up in around 200 days, and it was never meant to last. By the 2000s, it was cracking. So humanity built the largest movable structure ever placed on land. The new safe confinement, 36,000 tons of steel, taller than the Statue of Liberty, and in 2016 slid it on rails over the dying sarcophagus. It is designed to last 100 years. Let that sink in. 100 years is not how long the danger lasts. It is only the length of the next shift. The plutonium in that ruin has a half-life of around 24,000 years. The exclusion zone will outlast the pyramids and every building we have ever made, and generation after generation will have to rebuild it again and again over one night's mistake. And yet the zone is not dead. With the people gone, the forests filled with wolves, lynx, and wild horses, and a handful of elderly villagers returned, preferring a poisoned home to a safe exile. 14 places on this list were left by choice, by force, or by fear, and one refuses to let go at all. Chernobyl is different. Here, we did not decide when to leave, and we do not get to decide when we may return. The most dangerous room on Earth is still down there, under the steel, patient, silent, keeping a calendar no human being will ever see the end of. 15 places, emptied by gold, by treaties, by poison, by war, and one that refuses to empty at all. The next video leaves the surface entirely. Top 10. Mysterious caves on Earth. Even cavers are afraid to enter. Subscribe so you do not miss it. And drop a comment and tell me which country you are watching from, and which of these 15 places you would dare to spend a single night in. I actually go through the comments, so tell me.